Hello, guys. Welcome to Plain Mundane Show. Hey, what I wanted to talk about today is I want to do something a little bit different. I'm not going to read an article or bring up any topic I've researched. I want to tell you a real story that happened to me. I've traveled a lot. I've traveled the world. I mean, if you look on my mantle up here, that's Berlin Bear, agate rocks from Cataratas de Iguazu in Brazil. I've got Egypt, Honduras, Thailand, Ukraine, Australia, Bolivia. Yeah, I've been all over. In fact, we're going to talk about the time that I flew on a commercial airliner from Lima, Peru to Quito, Ecuador without a seat assignment. I sat in the kitchen, I sat in the galley, and I'm going to tell you how it happened. And this was probably in 93, so this is like 25, 26 years ago. I just started my career. And just to show you, I traveled a lot. Look at these. These are my passports. One of them is my current passport. But when I did the juiciest part of my traveling, I worked for a public vaccine company. And this was my green passport. This was green for reasons I can't tell you. But it has 4-page extensions. And it's full. It's just full of stamps and visas and travel. I mean, it just goes on, and they all do. I've got other page extensions and another couple of them. My newest one doesn't because I've started traveling less. I don't like to travel internationally. I'm just tired of it. Been there, done that. It's like, hey, when you first graduated school, I'm going to see the world. Now I've already been in all the continents, and I've seen about 60, 65 countries. And I only count the ones that I slept in and had a business meeting. So like I've been through Japan, Narita Airport so many times I can't count, but I don't count Japan because I've never been out of the airport. So as a vaccine salesman, yeah, I sold animal health medicines, sanitizers, and vaccines for poultry farms for a public company on Wall Street, on the American Stock Exchange. That company has since split, and now it's on the New York Stock Exchange as well. But, okay, here's what I'm going to tell you. This is funny. So I'm in Lima, Peru, and I had visited some farm. I think I went up to Huaral, north of Lima. There's an area that looks like the surface of the moon, and they grow genetic breeders, grandparent stock for chickens there. And there can't be any local birds or animals, and there's nothing out there. It takes a while to drive to it, and it literally looks like you're on the moon kicking dust. So if you could. So anyway, I go back. Now this was back in like 93, 1992 or 93. And back in those days when you had a schedule, we didn't use the internet yet. It existed. I think we had CompuServe and with monochrome screens and email and things, but we didn't have travel services like Kayak or anything. So my travel agent would always pre-call. You had to pre-confirm your flight. So if you were in Lima, Peru on business, and the day you were going to leave, you had to call the day before and advise them that you're leaving the country and you are going to make that flight that you had the ticket for, that you bought, and you have decided to fly, and you are going to return. I think the reason why they would do that is because people have a tendency to buy a round-trip ticket, which can be cheaper than a one-way ticket, and they don't use the other half. So if you didn't pre-confirm that you were going to fly back, they gave your seat away. But I never worried about that. I've never called to confirm a seat. I just didn't care. Plus my travel agents did it. But one time my travel agent didn't do it. And so I was in Lima, and I go to the airport, and I get up to the counter, and she, I've got like 2 hours before my flight, maybe an hour and a half. I arrived in plenty of time, and I was flying to Quito, Ecuador. Now my visit in Quito was very important. One of the biggest poultry producer in Ecuador. If you knew that, it'd be like the Tyson family here, or I met Don Tyson before. I met Frank Perdue. I've met all the American U.S. chicken manufacturers. And so I was going to the Bakker family in Ecuador, very big, B-A-K-K-E-R. They own all the chicken in Ecuador. So I had an appointment with John Backer. He's probably an older man now, but he might still be there running it, or someone else in his family. So anyway, I get to the airport. The lady says, you're not on here. You didn't pre-confirm. You didn't call to reconfirm your flight, and you can't go. And I was like, no. And I was going to miss this meeting with John Backer, So I thought, there's no way to get me on that flight. You don't have any. No, sir. No, sir. So I got all dejected, and I went and I sat down. I remember I sat down over by this baggage carousel belt. I always sit on those. Even when they're running, you sit on the little metal rim. I have a small butt, so I can sit on the metal band while the belt's going behind me. So I'm just sitting on the baggage carousel, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do? That was more important than my trip, whatever I was doing on that farm in Peru, was my meeting in Quito with Bacher. So I'm sitting there just thinking, I sat there for a while, and then this shoe shine boy came up to me, and he goes, he was probably 9 years old. I'm not kidding. This boy in this picture looks older and cleaner than the one that I met. The one that I met, he was really dirty. His shoes had holes in them. His face was dirty. His hair hadn't been washed or kept. When he woke up, he just probably slept with a shoe shine box in the street. But he just walked up like a man, just all confident, and he just looked right at me, and he goes, "What's wrong?" And I looked at him, in a second, I evaluated the situation. I can waste my time talking to this kid, or shoo him away, or say something rude. And I thought, just for fun, let's explain to the shoe shine boy what happened. So I'm like, I didn't call and reconfirm my flight yesterday, so they won't let me fly. And now the plane's leaving. And he goes, really? He goes, let me see your ticket. And I'm thinking, I'm going to hand this little kid my ticket in an airport, right? So then I thought, what the hell? It's no good. So I gave him the ticket, and he's reading it. And he goes, okay, that's economy at the rate. Yeah, well, that is a refundable ticket. He's reading the code, the airline code on the ticket, right? So he's going through it, and he says, he goes, hold on a minute. So he goes up to the counter of this airline. It's a Peruvian airline, or Ecuadorian. Maybe it was an Ecuadorian airline. I think it was the Ecuadorian airline, not the Peruvian airline. But I'm not going to say the name, even if I can remember. So he jumps right over the scale and goes between the counter and goes to a doorway in the back where their back office is. And he opens the door and just goes in and disappears. He could have just walked out the back with my ticket. I don't know where he went. But I'm thinking, I got to find a place to sleep now in Lima and buy another ticket to get to Ecuador and find out how I'm going to get there. Might have to charter a plane. I used to have like $500,000 to spend on myself and my travel, or $600,000 a year, between hotels, conferences, booths, marketing expenses, samples. All that was included in my travel and entertainment T&E account. So he comes back out and he goes, hey, I got you on. They're going to let you fly on that same flight. He says, but it's leaving. Come on, we got to run. And the lady comes out and she's like, you're fine. Just go ahead, go with him and get on the. She goes, but you have to hurry. They've already left. And I'm like, okay, thank you. I'm just so excited. I had this big Samsonite hard case. We used to have hard case suitcases back then. And I go running down to the immigration line where the security soldiers are standing with machine guns. And the kid runs in front of me and he pulls up the little ribbon, the ribbon belt, the little that you walk through. He just pulls it up and he goes, come on. He looks at those soldiers and he goes, don't worry, he's with me. And they go, okay. And I go running past like 4 soldiers with machine guns that are Peruvian soldiers, because the shoe shine boy said, let him come on with me. He's with me. I think I was with the leader of the shoe shine mafia in Peru. So we go running down the gate hallway, and we get to the gate, and there's this flight attendant there, and she's got a walkie-talkie, and she's at this glass door where people had just walked out and climbed up into the plane. And she goes, he's here, stop. And you hear the radio going, okay, I'll stop. And she goes, okay. She goes, you're going to have to run for it. And she goes, the plane is that one. And she points. Literally, I'll show you on my screen. She points out at the, well, I can't pull up that picture here. I already loaded it. if you can see my cursor from that black building, I ran out all the way across the service area, across the taxiway, down this path, over to the far left black runway you see over there. I ran right up to the active runway. But before I did that, I told that kid, I go, thank you so much. You saved my most important meeting in Ecuador. And I reached in my wallet and I gave him a $20 bill. So I'm sure he enjoyed that. And I ran off, and but when I got to the plane, I'm running out and I'm looking up and I'm thinking, I've never gotten on a plane on an active runway before or without stairs. How do you do it? And I felt like the little bird in that book, and I was going to say, are you my mother? You know, that was about the proportion, you know. And then suddenly the door opened, and this man came out, flight attendant, and he poked his head out, and he unfolded the steps, and they came down. He goes, you're going to have to come up the steps, drag your suitcase. Okay. So I go up the steps, and he puts my suitcase in the jacket closet right there at the door. And he says, did they tell you you don't have a seat? And I said, no, that's fine. That's fine. I was ready to just fly. I'll stand in the back. He goes, no. He goes, you're going to have to sit over here in the galley. I think it was a 707. They used to have the galleys up on the front right side. It was an older used plane. So he goes, sit right here. He opens up this curtain in the galley, and I sat right next to the oven in one of these little flight attendant seats. And I don't think there was a seatbelt on that one. It wasn't for landing or taking off. And so I sat there in the galley by myself with the food, the curtain. And then, can you imagine, they were on the active runway and they stopped the plane. If you were a passenger on that plane, we're waiting for another passenger. Oh, folks, there's another passenger that's going to join us, and we have to wait for him to run on foot to the active runway, and then we'll be on our way, folks. You know? So I get on there, and they take off. And then once we reached cruising altitude, the flight attendants come in the galley, and they go, you're going to have to move to another chair because we have to work in here. And they said, go up to the bulkhead and sit in the chairs that we just took off in. And I said, okay. So I came out of the galley, and I walked down to the front behind where the pilots are, and I sat in the little fold down chair on the wall, and I buckled myself in, and I sat there, and I'm looking at all the passengers on the airplane. They're all looking at me. Like, who is this guy? Who is this guy, you know, with his green passport and his catching a plane on the runway and stopping us? And so then they gave me my food, and I had a tray, and I ate with the tray on my lap in the flight attendant seat facing the passengers on the plane. And when we landed in Ecuador, I was on time to my meeting, and I made my appointments, all the ones that I had planned. So that's my story. That's how the shoeshine boy in Lima got me on a plane where I was unconfirmed and my seat had been given away, and I boarded by climbing up the folding stairs on an active runway. That's why I don't share the name of the airline. But it was the Ecuadorian airline, not the Peruvian. But that's how I flew once from... I've got stranger stories, believe it or not, in Ecuador about flying with the door open. We were going over a mountain, and I went to shut the door. Don't shut the door. It gets hot in here. That's another story for next time. But next time I load one of these personal experience stories for you, I don't know. I might have it be a part of something I do, and I'll give it a name like Story Time or Travel Diaries. I don't know. But they're fun. There's some funny stuff that happened to me. And when I think back on it these days, you know, that was like 26 years ago. How hilarious. And who was that shoeshine boy? I bet he's a very successful businessman now. So anyway, hope you enjoyed my story. Till I post another video, goodbye.